Maybe you recognize that piece. It is Peter Cornelius's Three Kings Carol, and one of the compositions I, your host, Tristan Andrew, want you to know about, because I'm here to educate you on some wonderful compositions for the Christmas season, written by largely overlooked German opera composers. Stay with me, and you will see that these composers all wrote operas, but they also wrote non-operatic compositions. Let me show you what I am talking about. Ho, ho, ho! Opera composers are not limited to that form, especially when you are looking for holiday music. Most familiar operas were composed by people who specialized in that form. Of course, there are some exceptions. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was as brilliant at symphonies, concerti, and sacred works as he was at, well, anything else, including opera. Other composers who were multilingual in musical form come to mind as well, such as Richard Strauss. But we don't pay much attention to, say, Giacomo Puccini's or Richard Wagner's non-operatic output. This survey will be looking at works by German opera composers, but in two cases, the music is not from their operas. And by holiday music, I mean Christmas. I tend to look at art music as much as possible through what I refer to as a holiday lens. If you look closely at a lot of art music history, it is surprising how much can be linked to various holidays, particularly the holidays of Halloween, Christmas, Earth Day, and Easter. In this survey, I found 4 pieces for Christmas, although 2 of those works came from opera. They are, in fact, often performed as concert segments, so I feel okay about sneaking them into this German holiday art music survey. Starting with Karl Otto Nicolai's Overture on Lutheran Christmas hymn, From Heaven Above to Earth I Come, then to Peter Cornelius's Three Kings Carol, the Overture and Pantomime from Engelbert Humperdinck's adaptation of the Grimm brothers' Hansel and Gretel, and finally, Hans Pfitzner's Overture from The Christmas Elf. Karl Otto Nicolai, born in 1810 and dying in 1849, is remembered today almost entirely for the overture to his last opera, based on William Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor, and for being a founder of the mighty Vienna Philharmonic. Still, others among his works are worth hearing, and he surely would have produced more had his life not ended so prematurely. Nicolai was artistically bound by a certain perfectionism and caution that hampered his productivity. He was from the provincial city of Königsberg in Prussia, now Kaliningrad in Russia. Nicolai's output included 4 operas prior to The Merry Wives, sacred and secular choral works, songs, chamber works, and orchestral works, including 2 symphonies. It is his Christmas overture that we will be looking at in this survey. In his youth, Nicolai was exploited as a musical prodigy by his father. He studied in Berlin in 1827 and later under Giuseppe Bini in Rome. From 1838 onward, he produced successful operas in Italy and Vienna. In 1841, he became court conductor in Vienna, and he founded the Philharmonic Society there in 1842. In 1847, he became conductor of the Berlin Opera, where he produced his adaptation of The Merry Wives of Windsor in 1849. It remains one of the most iconic comic operas of the 19th century. Nicolai's Christmas Overture was composed in 1833. It is scored for orchestra with optional chorus doubling the brass declaration of the famous seasonal chorale in the final pages. Although naive and lacking the sophistication of his later opera overtures, this Christmas overture shows the 23-year-old Nicolai had already become a good orchestrator and was able to live up to his ideal, gained from Mozart's music, of achieving formal balance and clarity. Nicolai's treatment of a Lutheran chorale goes beyond Johann Sebastian Bach. The overture begins with a slow introduction that is subject to being criticized as overly dark in mood. Then again, it is based on a text from the Bible that reads, "The people who walked in darkness hath seen a great light." Remember Handel's Messiah? The great light happens musically when the tempo picks up, but the bass line intones the very familiar Lutheran Christmas chorale, "From heaven above to earth I come." This rises to a triumphant conclusion in which the chorus joins singing that chorale, perhaps joined by an optional organ. The Overture's first performance on May 29, 1833 at the Garnisonkirche in Berlin was followed by 3 more performances in Leipzig and Vienna, but the work was never published and remained unheard and forgotten for decades. Our next composer, Peter Cornelius, born in 1824 and dying in 1874, worked under the shadow of Franz Liszt and Richard Wagner, being employed by both composers at various times. In fact, we owe the holiday music we are celebrating here to Cornelius's relationship with Liszt. His compositions included chamber and church music and secular songs, among which stands the Stabat Mater for soloists, choir, and orchestra, composed in 1849. He is best known for his first opera, The Barber of Baghdad, which was composed during his brief stay in Weimar from 1852 to 1858. Despite his long-standing association with Wagner and Liszt, Cornelius's relationship with the so-called New German School of composition was sometimes rocky. For instance, he did not attend the premiere of Wagner's Tristan und Isolde, citing the premiere of his own second opera, El Cid, the Cid, as an excuse. Cornelius was well regarded by his contemporaries, considered honest, honorable, sophisticated, and engaging in conversation and personal manner. His music is particularly admired in Germany, where Barber of Baghdad remains a perennial favorite, and his substantial number of songs, duets, and choruses are highly regarded. Perhaps his best-known non-operatic work is his Weihnachtslieder for voice and piano, composed in 1856 and revised in 1859 on Liszt's recommendation, who advised him to quote the melodies of related older Christmas carols in the piano accompaniment. Cornelius himself wrote the texts for these choral arrangements, which so wonderfully retells the New Testament Christmas narrative as seen through the eyes of an unquestioning child. At the same time, this is deeply spiritual and emotional music. It is no wonder that the Weihnachtslieder were Cornelius's most popular compositions and have attracted new choral settings. They were first composed in 1856, then revised in 1859, and revised once more in 1870. The last version is the one usually performed. Die Könige, Three Kings, is the work for which Cornelius is best known in Great Britain. It is quite simply a ravishing polyphonic setting that grows from a tender beginning to a poignant emotional climax. Liszt's involvement in this piece is significant. He suggested that Cornelius add the Lutheran chorale in the bass. Wie schön leuchtet der Morgenstern, how brightly shines the morning star, which adds a level of commentary to the story of the Magi. The polyphonic combination of song melody above and chorale tune below creates a unique, beautiful sonority. The particular chorale was composed by Philip Nicolai in 1597. Nicolai's hymn was an Advent hymn, in which the morning star is an allegory for the arrival of Jesus, not the Star of Bethlehem. However, the carol describes the visit of the Magi to the Christ child during the Nativity, and is also used as an Epiphany anthem.
Drei Kinder wanderten aus Morgenland. Ein Sternlein führt sie zum Jordanstrand. In Juda fragen und forschen die drei, wo der neugeborene König sei. Sie wollen Weihrauch, Myrrhe und Gold dem Kinde spenden zum Opfersollt. Und hell erglänzet des Sternes Schein. Zum Stalle gehen die Vögel ein. Das Knäblein schauen sie wonnig, anbetend leisen die Götter sich. Sie bringen Weihrauch, Myrrhe voll zum Opfer dar, dem Knäblein aus. O Menschenkind, haltet euch still. Die Könige wandern, wo wandern nicht? Der Stern der Liebe, der wahre Stern, erhält dein Ziel, so sehr, und vielen Weihrauch, Myrrhe und Gold. Schenke dein Herz dem Knäblein hold. Schenk ihm dein Herz.
The hymn was originally translated in 1916 by W.G. Rothery. The more commonly used translation, including references to the Magi being from Persian lands, was made in 1928 by H.N. Bate for the Oxford Book of Carols. Alright, enough non-operatic works. Here comes some opera. Starting with Engelbert Humperdinck. Born in 1854 and dying in 1921. Though he wrote a great deal of music in a variety of genres, he is best remembered for a single opera, Hansel and Gretel, from 1893, based on the familiar Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Humperdinck's musical style is infused with elements of the German folk tradition, but his primary influence was clearly the music of Richard Wagner. Like Cornelius, Humperdinck worked as an assistant to the older master for a time, even providing extra music for a scene change in the premiere staging of Wagner's final opera from 1882, Parsifal. It is possible that Humperdinck's music remains uncredited as part of the score that has come down to posterity. During his musical career, Humperdinck supplemented his compositional activities with turns as a music editor, critic, and, at various times, a music teacher. Wagner's son, after Siegfried, was one of his students. His other works, particularly the pleasant 1880 Humoresque for orchestra in E major, find occasional performances. Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel incorporated folk music-inspired themes throughout, a technique that was widely admired at the time and seen as a highly original synthesis of Wagnerian technique and traditional German music. The genesis of this opera was unusual and more than a little fortuitous. Humperdinck's sister wanted to put on a show for a family children's party and hit on the idea of dramatizing the Grimm brothers' tale of Hansel and Gretel. She asked her brother if he would write a little music for her project, and he happily provided some musical numbers. The entertainment went off so well that Humperdinck decided to expand his work into a 3-act opera. Humperdinck had the great inspiration to send his completed score to Richard Strauss, better known for his Also sprach Zarathustra, Salome, and Electra, who immediately recognized its excellence. Strauss conducted the work's debut during Advent, and it vaulted instantly into fame. With the support of Strauss, the rest of the opera's story is a matter of history. Technically, the opera is an intriguing construction according to Wagnerian Musikdrama principles. There are plenty of harmonic and orchestral devices inspired by Wagner, yet Hansel and Gretel is not at all Wagnerian in terms of solemnity, seriousness, or excessive length. Though the drama is elaborated with a few additional characters like Sandman and Dewdrop Fairy, and other changes, it is clearly comprehensible, even to young people with no prior exposure to opera. Hansel and Gretel is regarded as the leading children's opera in the playlist. The Overture, and later the Pantomime, incorporates the famous Evening Prayer leitmotif, in which Humperdinck inserted his central motif of the opera that ties it to Christian themes and thus Christmas itself. When distress is at its height, our Lord Christ will put it right. It has been associated with Christmas since its earliest performances, and today it is still most often performed at Christmas time. And here's our final composer. Hans Pfitzner, born in 1869 and dying in 1949, carried the German Romantic tradition well into the 20th century. Unlike his contemporaries Gustav Mahler and Richard Strauss, Pfitzner's reputation never extended beyond Germany. Yet, there is much to admire in his music, particularly in his best-known work, the opera Palestrina. He developed a reputation for difficult, very serious music. Working as a music teacher, an unpaid position as a theater conductor in Mainz enabled him to have his first opera, Der arme Heinrich, performed. His paid positions culminated in a multi-position stay in Strasbourg as director of the conservatory, chief symphony and opera conductor. The security of a fixed income produced a creatively favorable environment. He composed prolifically in all forms, favoring opera. Although Pfitzner became enmeshed with the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich, he counted among his Jewish friends and supporters Gustav Mahler, Bruno Walter, and Otto Klemperer. His ultimate disillusion with Nazism lost him his life membership at the Munich Academy of Music in 1934. This and various family tragedies, including the destruction of his home in Munich during World War II, left Pfitzner an aging, half-insane street person. After the war, a pension and residence were procured for him, and he died in Salzburg, officially denazified, and with the ban on performances of his music lifted. (1906) saw the premiere of a Christmas play by Isa von Stach, with incidental music by Pfitzner called Das Christ-Elflein, the Christmas Elf. The original premiere was not a success. German critic Edward Wahl wrote, "It would fain be simple and childlike. It is childish. It would fain be religious. It is sentimental. It would fain be serious. It is in bad taste. It is ridiculous." The Christmas Elf was something very different from Pfitzner's usual fare, more in the vein of Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel. Pfitzner's fairy tale tells how an elf and a grumpy fir tree cure a sick child with the help of the Christ child, Christkind. During the summer of 1917, Pfitzner revised the work as a two-act Spieloper, meaning comic opera. He adapted and shortened the play and turned some of the speaking and silent roles into ones for singers. The revised version premiered in December 1917 at what is now known as Semperoper in Dresden. Otto Klemperer was an admirer of the work, but Bruno Walter spoke of it as a Lernian serpent, the librettist, who had slain Hercules, the composer. The revised version continues to be performed occasionally in German-speaking countries, for instance, by the Hochschule für Musik und Theater Hamburg in 2008, and was heard in Boston for the first time in 1954, when it was given a concert performance in Jordan Hall by the New England Conservatory of Music. The opera was broadcast on German television NWDR in 1955, conducted by Wilhelm Schuchter, with Anneliese Rothenberger in the title role, and has subsequently had 2 more full-length recordings. The overture's nearly 11 minutes for a work lasting not much more than 96 minutes, of which only just over 70 consists of actual music, seems overly extended. Still, it is both charming and enticing. Lots of pithy and active wind writing. A more serious central section, and an affectionate simplicity. Pfitzner once recorded it, and Mahler conducted it. It has been said of a 1979 recording of this work that Pfitzner's writing is often as warm as gingery Lebkuchen, and just as satisfyingly delicious. As we can see, the importance of technology can't be understated, as it demonstrates how close this lovely instrumental segment from Opera for Christmas came to being lost to obscurity. Let's give a salute to often overlooked composers. When I first started listening to art music, most of what I heard was what is often referred to as the genre's war horses, the iconic music of composers such as the Three Bs of Johann Sebastian Bach, Ludwig van Beethoven, and Johannes Brahms, along with the earlier mentioned Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Richard Strauss. Of course, this list is not complete, as the music I've included in this survey makes clear. In fact, there is an enormous body of music out there that we don't often hear, except as filler on music programs built around more familiar favorites. I hope you enjoyed my quick introduction to what I call holiday music that is more obscure, starting this time with German composers. Next time you are putting together your own holiday playlists, don't forget the music of Nicolai, Cornelius, Pfitzner, and Humperdinck. Here is the pantomime as our survey ends. I hope you have enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at German Christmas art music history and the lesser-known composers who wrote these lovely works for this special time of year. Please comment, subscribe, and keep listening, even to the lesser-known works. Have a safe and happy holiday! Ho, ho, ho!